video on micro USB pros and cons. I'm doing this because actually I have a tablet, a Nexus 7. I'm going to be working on a review for you guys soon for that tablet. It's a little bit old now, like 2 years. I actually only bought it a year ago, but I mean it works great. You know, $200 quad-core 1.3 gigahertz Tegra 3 processor. You know, it's good and it does what I need it to do for a low price, and that's what's important. But I'm not here because of that. I am here because of micro USB. I've had a couple of problems with it, and I'm kind of reevaluating my opinion on it, whether or not it is worth it. So, if you guys kind of take a look at, so I made a pros and cons list, and I know this is coming to you guys right in the middle of that Hackintosh project. I'm going to be editing this video on the Hackintosh, and I'll be finishing up your guys' Hackintosh Pro project video. But anyways, micro USB, back to that. What is happening is that it actually, I'll just tell you guys the story. So I had to, for school, memorize a monologue of Macbeth. Yeah. And it was like 15 lines, and a loser like me, obviously, I left it to the last night to memorize it. And, you know, it was 11 o'clock, 11:30. Macbeth isn't exactly the most exciting thing to be memorizing at that time of night. But, yeah, I had to do it, and I fell asleep. My Nexus 7 was charging on the bed while I fell asleep. I woke up the next morning, and it was on the ground, and the micro USB thing was bent. And all, I think it's charging a little bit slower, but, you know, it's better than not charging at all. You know, it's kind of stupid of me not to move it off to the side before I fell asleep, but it was an accident. And, you know what? What's done is done, but, you know, I was thinking of it, and this would never have happened with the lightning cable that comes on the Apple iPhone 5 from 5S now, also. And I'll tell you why. It is because the way it is built. But we will get into that later. Let's first talk about the pros of what micro USB has going for it. So ring the bell and let's get the wrestling match started. Standardized. It is standardized. Micro USB is on everything. It is on everything from phones to tablets to, you know, to PS3 controllers. Well, PS3 controllers use micro USB, which is a little bit bigger, but you guys get the idea. USB is there, and it is being used everywhere, you know. Even my Bluetooth speaker is using micro USB, and you know what? That is good. You know, everything using micro USB is a good thing, because that means that you only have to bring one charger with you when you go on vacation. So who wouldn't be excited about that? That's really great, and it's really neat. But is it worth it? Okay, so why isn't it worth it? Well, it breaks so easily. If you guys take a look on the housing of the micro USB, it's kind of like a parallelogram, and with the little tab in the middle. This tab in the middle gets bent so easily. You twist it, it falls on the floor, it lands on it, it breaks so easily. And that is partly because of the part that sticks in. If you twist it up, then it's going to bend the whole thing. The whole tab on the inside is going to come out. I'm sure you guys can imagine that in your head, how that would happen. And it sucks, but it will happen. Now if you take a look at the lightning port on the Apple iPhone, if it bends, either the charger is going to break, which is the charger, like the actual cable, is going to break, or, you know, or that's it, or it's just going to come right out. There's nothing else that's going to happen, and that is much better. I'd rather have the charger break than the charger port, because if the charger port breaks, you're screwed. Yeah, totally screwed. But it could be done better. Everything could be done better here. And this is one of the biggest things that I enjoy about the Apple iPhone is that the charging port, it charges fast. That's because it has a really low milliamp hours for the Apple iPhone, but that's okay. You know, it gives you through the full day. Sorry, and it works. But we're not gonna talk about that in this video. You guys can go ahead and take a look at another video. But it just pops right out, and you guys see this following through all of Apple's products. Even in the MacBook Pro and things, the MagSafe is magnetic, so it just pops right out, and it's fine. It doesn't break anything. While you take a look at all those Windows machines, and it breaks, it twists, it does all this stuff, and you don't know if it's in, you don't know if it's out, it gets dirty, it doesn't work that well. But, you know, it really does show something that a small company like Apple can do. Well, they're not as small as they used to be anymore, but they do such a great thing. That is individualized attention for each of their products. And you guys just don't realize how important that really is until you use it. Because if you look at it, everything is thought down to the last detail. And I'm not exactly the biggest Apple fan, but you know, they do a good job of it. They really do, you know, from whether your thumb can reach the top right corner of the Apple iPhone, or, you know, whether it curves correctly, whether the edges are too sharp, right down to the connector. You know, in Android or in whatever, you just pop one right in. You pop right in a micro USB. That's what everyone uses. You pop a micro USB in. And is that necessarily the best port to be using? Someone needs to go out there and make the best of everything. So you take Qualcomm, for example. Qualcomm makes smartphone chips. They also make some tablet chips, but they're a little bit more low end. Anyways, they're found in all of the Android phones for the most part. And you know, the new Samsung Galaxy S5 uses, and the HTC One M8, that's a new one. They all use Qualcomm Snapdragon processors. Also the Google Nexus 5. They all use them. And they use this because Qualcomm can give individualized attention just to the processor and make the processor the best that it possibly can be. But there really is a downside to that. Whereas Apple, their processors are made by themselves and they are highly underclocked. Apple iPhone 5s is only a 1.2 gigahertz processor. If you look at Android, it's a 2.2 gigahertz processor in the Google Nexus 5. And, you know, as that does give stellar performance, the Apple iPhone 5s is just a step behind that. Barely anything that you're going to notice, especially with all those optimized apps for it. You know, it is just such a great system, and it really does work to Apple's advantage. You know, they can't fit a bigger battery in there, you know, because they're worrying about that screen size, and whether your thumb can reach the top right corner or it can't, and whether that depends on the size of the screen, and the size of the screen depends on how much battery you can put in there. You know, I think it's only like a 1,100 milliamp hour battery life in the iPhone 5s, but it gets you through most of the day, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. It works, and it does its jobs because that processor is just so well optimized for that phone. And I know we're getting off topic here, but okay, let's just get back to the micro USB. And also the housing of the micro USB, it kind of breaks. It's really a thin sheet of metal, and it cracks. Mine actually cracked right down the side. It cracked. This was before another time when it got stepped on the cable, and my sister stepped on it, and yeah, I know. And anyways, my sister stepped on it, and it just yanked the cable right out. And then there's this crack in there, and that sucked. But, you know, if someone was to design something that would just work the way it's supposed to, so everyone could pop in the best possible charger. You know, charger, designing that isn't necessarily the hardest thing to do. Sorry, my screen just shut off. But it's not necessarily the hardest thing to do. and it could really make a difference to the whole user experience, whether they have to wait 15 hours to talk to customer support, and whether they don't have to, or whether they're just overall happy with the product, because that really is the deciding factor. If you cannot charge your phone, you probably don't like it. I'm just saying that. One last thing, it's not digital. I think that's what it's called. It's not digital, the cable, which means it can be put in either side. So you can only put it in one way, which is what all USB things are. You can only put them in one way, which is annoying also. But what are you gonna do about that? That's a little too widespread. USB, but in micro USB, we still have a chance to fight, and we can do it, except that it only goes in one way. If you look at I know I'm talking about the Apple Lightning port so much here, but it is such a prime example that you just have to give props to it. If you look at it, you can put it in up, you can put it on top or the bottom, and thank God Apple fixed this when they got rid of that 30-pin connector. I don't know what this load of junk is that the 30-pin connector charges faster. That's not true. It's not true at all. If you guys look at the 30-pin connector, right here, there's only 4 pins. Those little gold pins, there's only 4 of them. And if you look at a USB connector, there's only 4 pins. So those 4 pins correspond. I don't know why they put 30 pins in, just to make it look cool, or to for some other dumb reason. It was older, so maybe it was for stability or something like that. But there's only 4 pins being used, and there's 7 pins being used in the new Lightning port. So they may call it the 30-pin connector, but only 4 pins are being used for actual charging. And in USB, there is positive charge, negative charge, and data positive, data negative. That's 4, and that's all you need. Now what they do in the Lightning port, I'm not exactly if this is a sure orientation, but this is probably some way it goes, is like positive power on the outside, and then data positive, and then data negative, and then ground in the middle. Something like that, maybe, but that gives you a total of 7 pins, and it works so that this way, if you have positive here, and then you flip the cable over, positive is still over here, because positive is both on the outside. So it still works, if you flip it up or you flip it down. And the only thing that's going to make something charge faster is how many amps is coming out of the wall socket, how many amps is coming out of the transformer, that block that you plug in. That is really what matters in charging. Electrons, it doesn't really matter like how big the wire is. Well, okay, I'm not going to get into that. It doesn't matter actually, but it matters, and it's not really worth it, especially with such a small number of amps. If you have more amps, then that's really when you start seeing a difference. With the 1 amp that the iPhone charges at, you're not really going to see too much of a difference whether it's a thick wire like this or it's a thin wire like that. Because there can be a thick wire, but if there's not enough amps to fill it to something else that someone should develop. If you guys want to leave a comment, if you guys really want to see a Nexus 7 video review, then go ahead. I will probably do one in the future, and I'll get started right now on that Hackintosh part 3, I think it is. So stay tuned, and thanks a lot. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel and video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.